Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, we are now well on the road to the holiday season. Celebrity biographies, AAA games console titles, new handsets, and Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals. And despite the bells and whistles of the latest smartphones, the reality is most people won't be making their own Hollywood movies. They'll be taking photos and scrolling down endlessly down their Instagram and Facebook feeds. And some will be removing some of those photos from taking up too much space on their phone. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why am I scrolling endlessly, looking at other people's highlight reels in life, which make me jealous and envious that they're living their best life, when our very own smartphone has thousands and thousands of photos from all the great nights out, holidays and memories that we've accumulated over the years? Why do we never look at those pics from 5-6 years ago? And the reason I mention this is I recently came across an inspiring Swedish tech startup story. And the company's called Digo, and they're an experience-driven cloud provider offering 100 gigabyte of free secure storage, but with an AI-empowered interactive display that helps users rediscover their best stored memories. And it was designed in the bustling Swedish startup scene, and the platform offers users anywhere in the world a place to securely store and uniquely experience their photos and memories. Essentially a new world where users never run out of space for their photos, have protection, and also know that running out of storage space or a broken phone no longer equals the loss of their favourite photos. And all that just kind of opened up my curiosity. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Sweden so we can speak with Carl Hasselkog about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Carl. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Well, thank you, Neil. Great to be here. So I'm Carl, co-founder and CEO of Digo. And what we do is that we offer a AI-based cloud storage, which helps you relive your memories. And the reason we built Digo, the realization we had behind it are actually two different realizations. And the first one was that we realized that our photos or your memories is probably the most important asset that you have. Like if your house burns down, as long as your family is safe, the only thing you can't really replace is your memories. Everything else in the house can be replaced. So we realized that this is a hugely important asset and important problem to solve. So we decided that we want to offer huge amounts of free cloud storage to the world so that billions of people could afford it. And the second realization we had was that tons of people already have cloud storage, they store it, but never really use what they store or never consume it. You store thousands and thousands of photos and you never look at them. So instead you open Instagram and you see photos from that trip to Italy that your friend is having, and you feel jealous and you feel fear of missing out for that party you weren't invited to. And maybe you forget that all the great parties you were invited to or the great trips you did with your family and your friends. So the key to really realizing all the value you have from your memories is by consuming them and reliving them. So we built an AI that helps you find and relive your memories just the same way you do with Instagram. So you get a feed of your own content where you can feel gratitude instead of jealousy. So that's who we are and the sort of thought process behind why we built what we built.
I love the idea behind that and how you're not looking at other people's highlight reels and best ofs and getting jealous and feeling envious. But when you've got so many, like you said, of your own memories and your own good stories, just sat there on your phone doing nothing and just ignored. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into that in a few moments. But before we do, can I ask, what's your origin story? Where did your passion for tech and photos, etc., and what was it that put you on the path that you're on today?
So my origin is actually, to go way back, is from my dad. So he and three colleagues in Gothenburg built the world's first operating system that supported multitasking. So back then it was called time sharing, because you had a big university computer where you shared all or computing it, and it was called GUTS. It was Gothenburg University Time Sharing System. So he taught me everything I know about tech, and he also had a massive sort of disregard of the status quo. So to give you an example, in late 70s, he went to a store here in Stockholm and bought a phone for our house. And when he came back home and opened it up, excited, new phone, and he saw a tag on it said, property of the Swedish government. And said, no, this is my phone. I bought it. But since we had a monopoly in Sweden, all phones were owned by the government, even if you bought it. And he felt that this was a violation of his rights. So he sued the government and won. So since then, Swedes have owned our own phones. So for me, a true inspiration in terms of both what you can do with technology, but also what you can do in terms of challenging the status quo and challenging existing infrastructure and systems and institutions that we have.
What a great story. And of course, that path led you to Digo, and which is an experience-driven cloud provider offering, I think, 100 gigabytes of free secure storage with an AI-powered interactive display that will then help you rediscover those best stored memories, like you said a few moments ago. But for people that are hearing about it for the first time, can you introduce the listeners to exactly what it is and what makes it different from offerings that, let's say, Apple or Google and Amazon are offering right now?
Yeah, sure. So there are mainly two things that are different. One is the 100 GB part that you mentioned, which is the most generous free offer in the world, combined with, like, if you upgrade to our premium storage is also the most affordable offerings. So that's just one reason. If you want the most affordable cloud storage, you can use Digo, and you can upload it and just leave it there if you want to, and it will work like any other cloud storage. But the thing that really excites me is what you mentioned with the AI, which helps we identify your best memories, your best photos, and present them to you in a really simple interface. So and different ways to re-experience them. And so let's say you've taken a ton of photos of your kids, and maybe they were running away, so a couple of them were blurry. Maybe your kids took their own photos, which can often means they're blurry, or you have a couple of screenshots, or maybe you took photos of a couple of invoices or receipts that you really don't want. Our AI automatically identifies all those photos and just picks the best ones, and then also keeps track of what you've looked at before, so that you always get fresh and new and interesting content.
And I've got to ask, what's the story behind the name? Is there a story there?
Not really. It was I was in high school when I started my first company, which was called Digo, and then it was a different service back then. And then I've just kept the name, and I just tried to find something that was easy to spell, was short, and .com was available. So I wish I had a better story. So sometimes I say that it's in Swedish, Deg, D-E-G, means dough. So as in money, and then is an infinity symbol, but that's it's not true that that was the origin. But sometimes to investors, I joke about that.
And one of the things I try and do on this podcast every day is give every tech startup scene a voice and put it on the map, not just Silicon Valley, because there's so much going on in the world right now. And it's worth pointing out that Digo was designed in a bursting Swedish startup scene. So can you expand on that scene and help everyone listening all over the world just put Sweden's tech scene on the map today?
Yeah, love to. Yes, Sweden's startup scene is amazing. I think next to Silicon Valley, we have the highest number of unicorns per capita. And 25% of citizens of Stockholm work in tech. So we have tons of very talented engineers. Royal Institute of Technology is just around the corner. So we have lots of skilled engineers, and as you know, Swedish design is also great. Our challenge before has been that we're not maybe the most social culture, and a part of it is due to the weather that we don't meet as much as in other cultures. And to get a really thriving startup scene, I think you need to meet other humans, and you can't just sit at home and code all the time. But in recent years, that has really changed a lot. There's been lots of work in Stockholm to make the startup scene more of a community, and I think it's improved immensely in the last couple of years.
And something else that really stood out to me when I was doing a bit of research was your new recent release of AutoAlbums, which again uses AI to create albums of similar photos, whether they're taken during last year or photos of basketball games or specific landmarks, which again is incredibly cool because, like we're saying at the very beginning of the podcast, so many similar photos from multiple holidays all get lost in the history of all those photos that we take. So can you expand on that AutoAlbum feature?
Yeah, I'd love to. Happy to hear that you're excited about it as I am. So interesting that you mentioned holidays, because I think that's one of the really key use cases that we identified. And what we saw was not just around managing and organizing your photos, but also sharing them. And many times when you go on a holiday with a couple of friends, or maybe you go to a wedding or a party, you always say afterwards, "Oh, guys, we need to share all these amazing photos. Could you send them to me?" Everyone says yes, and then no one does it. And the problem is not that it's not possible to share photos. Everyone knows how to share photos, but the problem is that it's too cumbersome. That you have 100 photos and selecting them and sharing them, and maybe you don't know if the recipient has that particular service or not. It's just too much of a hassle, so you don't do it. So the goal with AutoAlbums was to enable not just organization of photos, but sharing of them. So we create albums automatically, and then each album you can create, just click share, and then you share a link, and that link can be used by anyone. You don't need to have a Digo account to view the photos. So I think in combination with sharing, I think that's when it becomes really, really powerful.
And I was recently chatting to my wife about things like Facebook and social media platforms, and she was saying that one of the only reasons that she actually uses Facebook is for the time hop feature that will say things like, "Oh, it was 8 years ago today that you went to see a New York Yankees play," or something like that. So for those reasons alone, stepping away from Facebook and having this just come on your phone to remind you of memories like that is incredibly cool. And you did set out to shatter that typical idea of photo cloud storing too, that you just took photos away and never looked at them again. But for anybody listening that is a little bit excited about this, like I clearly am now, can you just walk me through how you can get the most out of the platform?
I think the key really is to upload as many photos as you have. The more you upload, the better it gets, and then you can start sharing with friends. And once you receive an album from a friend, we automatically save that so you can relive those memories as well. So the more photos you upload and the more you share, the more fun it gets. And we clearly see that once, like among our users, once you've uploaded, let's say 1,000 photos, then you become really hooked, and that's when you gain the most value from it.
Fantastic. And I would imagine over the years you've watched competitor after competitor get acquired by companies such as Google Photos, making you one of the few challenger brands left on the market. Can you tell me a bit more about that, how you see it and how you've navigated that continuously changing landscape of photo cloud storage?
Yeah. It's been a really rapidly changing landscape. Just as an example, when we started out almost 10 years ago, Amazon charged 14 cents per gigabyte for storing files in their data center. And now you can store it for less than 1/100th of that. So the price of storage has really gone down dramatically. And the challenge for many of our competitors was that if you sell something where the price goes down by a factor of 100, you're in for a bit of a change, at least, and many times also a challenge. And there are two reasons why we managed to navigate that. And the first one was that we've always kept an immensely efficient infrastructure, and that came from my dad's learnings from building computers in the 60s, where you didn't have the type of resources that you have now. So our infrastructure is extremely efficient. Then the other one is actually connected to this re-experiencing of your memories, because when you re-experience your memories and when you look at the feed in your Digo account, then we can monetize that or the same way Instagram does or the same way Google does. So whereas with Dropbox, the only way for them to make money is by charging you extra for the amount of storage that you use. And if you only charge for storage and the price of storage goes down, then that becomes challenging. So we did both tech innovation, but also business model innovation, in the sense that we're not as dependent on the price of storage being high. Like, I would love it if hard drives became free, because storage is mainly a cost for us since we give away so much for free.
And I've got to ask, what's next for Digo? What excites you about the future of this space? What makes you jump out of bed in the morning? Is there anything in particular that interests you?
Yeah, definitely. So the thing we've seen now for our users, those who really love it, is that their main challenge is that they use it so much that they look through all their best memories very quickly. Like, the typical user has about 5,000 photos, and out of those photos, maybe 1,000 are unique memories. If you remove the bad photos and the duplicates and all that, you have approximately 1,000 photos. So if you open that every day for a month, you go through those 1,000 photos very quickly. So then you want more, you want something else. And then we realized that, okay, what can we do to enable that? And something that we're working on now is a feature called Discovery, which helps you rediscover memories with photos that you didn't take yourself. So we look at the memories you've experienced. Let's say you went to a football game and there were tons of amazing memories from that, but maybe you didn't take as many photos as you wanted, or you were jumping up and down while you were taking those photos because your favorite team scored. Then those photos are blurry, but you still want to re-experience it. But there are thousands of photos from that game that someone else has taken that are probably better. So what we do is that we crawl the entire web and try to find photos relevant to you, but that you didn't take. So the long-term goal is for Digo to become the camera you never take out of your pocket. We just find something that are not necessarily your files, but it's your memories. So that's what really gets me out of bed in the morning and makes me super excited.
Love that. And we began today's conversation talking about your origin story, where you've came from, the startup scene in Sweden and the changes that you've seen. I'm now going to ask you, what was the soundtrack to your journey in tech? Is there a particular song that has inspired you throughout your career, helps you keep your head in the zone before going on stage, or just has inspired you along the way? Is there a particular song you can share and maybe a story behind it, and we'll add it to our Spotify playlist?
Yeah, I'm happy to. As a Swede, I almost feel obligated to say ABBA, and especially since I live nearby, that almost neighbor to the ABBA members, and they just released a new album. I'd say that they are truly inspiring. And as a startup, you always want to take over the world. So I'd say "The Winner Takes It All" by ABBA is my song.
Love that. I'll add that to the show notes. A little bit disappointed you didn't mention the Hives, one of the best Swedish bands I've ever seen live in my life. But that's a story for another day. But yeah. Before I let you go, for anyone listening want to find out more information about Digo, where can they download it? Where can they find out more information? And how can they contact your team? What's the best starting point?
Yeah, the best starting point is digo.com. That's where all contact information is available. You can download the app. Also, you can always search directly in the app stores. Just search for Digo and you'll find it.
Excellent. Well, I'll add that link to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. I think everybody listening, wherever they are in the world, your words would have resonated with them today. We've all got gigabytes, thousands of images stored on our phone that we'd never look back on. We're too busy looking at other people's photos. So if we can stop looking at other people's and look back and enjoy some of the great stories that we've got, I think that's got to be a great move forward. So thank you so much for sharing that and the story behind it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I suspect that most of you listening will have a smartphone and spend your time looking at others on Instagram while neglecting your own memories. And if you don't have a backup in place, you probably dread getting a new smartphone. So over to you. Are you tempted by 100 gigabyte of free secure storage with an AI-empowered interactive display? Something that can help you rediscover your best stored memories? If so, please let me know. And if you'd give it a try, I want to hear everything. Tell me the good, the bad, what you don't like, what you do, and I'll make your voice heard on this podcast. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Keep those messages coming in, and we'll keep building this show together. But it's time for an old man nap from me now, so I'm going to have a lie down and return again tomorrow with another guest. So thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.